Park has denied wrongdoing, but has apologized for carelessness.
Right now, thousands of people have gathered up here in Gwanghwamun for the 7th week of protests, a day after the parliament's vote on president's impeachment. As you can see, it's freezing cold in Gwanghwamun. It's down to -4 Celsius, but even so, people have gathered up to light up their candles.
And they didn't take a break over the holidays. Citizens dressed in Santa costumes and participated in the 9th candlelight rally on Christmas Eve. They held the 10th weekend rally on New Year's Eve. Millions of people rang in 2017, hoping for the South Korean president's resignation. And these citizens don't plan on ending the series of rallies anytime soon. So what is driving residents of Seoul to take to the streets?
I came out because I was too upset about all these things that happened. It's so unrealistic. I want the Korean government to fear the people. I want the country to be able to reflect its people's voice and its policies.
최순실 씨는 과거 제가 어려움을 겪을 때 도와준 인연으로 도움을 받은 적이 있습니다.
대통령 박근혜 탄핵 소추안은 가결되었음을 선포합니다.
South Koreans from different parts of the country and different generations have joined these rallies. They're frustrated and upset about President Park Geun-hye and her mysterious friend Choi Soon-sil. As many as 1 million people filled the streets of Seoul. It was South Korea's largest demonstration in more than a decade. But it was peaceful and had a festive mood. So far, there has been no violence and no one has been hurt during the protest.
It's peaceful and quiet, but will we be able to bring about change if we continue? Peaceful protest is the last hope of the Korean people.
The protesters cleaned up the streets after demonstrations. They carried garbage bags around to make sure they didn't leave any mess behind.
I don't want anyone to criticize the rally because the streets were dirty.
The efforts didn't go unnoticed by foreign media and people from around the world.
I think it's great that people protest and fight for their rights. While in Spain, the protests usually go violent.
It's a fantastic opportunity for the whole world to see how you can achieve a peaceful change of government.
The protests that have been going on here in Korea for the past weeks have been largely praised by the foreign media for its peaceful culture. The protests were much more about family festivals and people singing protest songs and singing popular songs like K-pop as well.
A stage is set up in the middle of Gwanghwamun Square for volunteer Korean artists to perform for rally attendees. People sang along and took photos as if they were at a concert.
집회 전반의 기조와 방향.
People singing along to songs they are familiar with help rally participants gain confidence and power.
Citizens transformed their anger toward the embattled president into humor and satire.
I wanted to deal with the wrongful deeds in a humorous way, so I came to the rally in costumes.
Many also raised flags satirizing the comical political situation in South Korea.
What I also saw today at this protest was that families were bringing, the parents were bringing their children together at the protest to experience a historic moment together.
In the past, college students and civil rights groups were the driving forces behind the protest. But this time, mostly families and young children have been taking part in the rallies over the past several weeks.
We brought our kids to show that this rally is meant to be peaceful.
These protests have brought memories flooding back for South Koreans. In the 1980s, they fought against a military dictatorship. The streets were covered with firebombs, stones, and tear gas bombs. The protesters were strong and resilient. And as a result, South Korean leaders established a direct presidential election system in 1987. 30 years on, the protest culture has matured. Police buses, once considered symbols of armed repression, are now decorated with blooming flowers. A Korean artist designed flower stickers and distributed them to rally participants.
뭔가 폭력적이거나 굉장히
I wanted to pursue a peaceful resistance that is also visually beautiful and reject violent and aggressive protest.
The people of South Korea plan to continue the weekly candlelight rallies until President Park resigns. They're writing a new chapter in their democracy, joining people beyond their borders in using peaceful protests to pressure for change.
The energy sector is undergoing a grand transition, driven by the fast-paced development of disruptive new technologies and global environmental challenges. We touched on this issue with Young Kim, chair of the World Energy Council. Cities gradually evolving in a more sustainable way. What will our cities look like in the future? We'll find out after this break.
Coming up next time on Gillette World Sport. Star striker Antoine Griezmann recounts that hat-trick for Atletico Madrid. Usain Bolt gives us a pep talk on how to get ahead in sprinting. And we preview the X Games with slopestyle king Mark McMorris. It's all coming up next time on Gillette World Sport. Today at 2:30 on CNBC Live.
When you go into a travel agent, you're looking for that personal interaction, but you're also expecting a level of expertise. However, most travel agents haven't been to every part of the world, and they certainly haven't been there recently. So when you look at artificial intelligence and its ability to ingest a massive amount of data and truly understand what's going on at the current time in that particular location, you end up with essentially an omniscient travel agent who can direct the customer to what's most important to them.
In 2015, nearly 200 countries adopted a landmark agreement in Paris in a show of global unity over one of the world's toughest challenges, climate change. The agreement features universality as both developed and developing countries pledge to join the fight against climate change. I had a one-on-one with Young Kim, the chair of the World Energy Council, who shared his thoughts on how the world can work closely to address the three dimensions of the energy trilemma: energy security, environmental sustainability, and equity.
Chairman Kim, thank you for having us today.
Thank you.
It's been about 100 days since your inauguration as chair of World Energy Council. Could you tell us what the council is?
World Energy Council is not only dealing with oil, but gas and coal, nuclear energy, and renewable energies. So we cover all spectrum of energies. And also, OPEC and IEA are representing the interest of the governments. So they are mostly comprised of the government officers at ministerial levels. But in World Energy Council, you can meet not only the public sectors, but also private sectors as well. And that's quite different.
Right. So you will serve as the chair of the World Energy Council for the next 3 years. Could you share with us some of your vision and goals for the council?
So far, we have the energy security as our first priority, and now we are making the environmental sustainability as our first. What I think I have to do is to provide the kind of meeting place or contact point in which we can mobilize the best minds in technology sector and the deepest pockets from financial sectors to come up with a solution to solve this dilemma between energy security and energy environmental sustainability. I adopted this program as inventor investor encounter, two eyes encounter. My model is the encounter of Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse. When they come together, they precipitate the second wave of industrial revolution, which we can call the electricity revolution.
With the implementation of the Paris Climate Agreement, the global energy industry is facing a big turning point. How do you see the global energy map changing in the future?
I would say that the global energy industry will change from resource-based and capital-intensive industry into knowledge-based, technology-intensive industry. And that so far, to develop gas and oil fields, we need a lot of capitals, and you have to find out the huge resources, whether it's within your territory or in the bottom of the Arctic oceans. So this is very much resource-based and capital-intensive. But now we are talking about electrical car, energy storage things, and also renewables and microbial fuel cells, all the things. So now we are talking about very technology-intensive and knowledge-based industry. That, I think, shows the aspects of the transition in a very short term.
Right. If, as you say, if the energy sector is transforming into technology-based and knowledge-based, wouldn't this be an opportunity for many Asian countries?
Yes, it is. And China are now producing more electric vehicles than the United States. And Korea is the largest holding the largest market share in energy storage. And so with top-notch IT technology in Korea and Japan and China, I think we can create a very smart grid, which can be globalized and copied by some other countries. So I feel like Northeast Asia will live in the future in this grand transition.
I understand that you frequently talk about a food, energy, water nexus. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, energy and food and water shares very similar traits in front of these climate change issues. They have these security problems and sustainability problems, equity problems as well. And also, they are interconnected. So if one element or the energy has some problem, that will naturally affect food and water as well. For example, to produce shale gas, you need a lot of water. So if there is a drought, then there will be a drop in shale gas. If there is a price hike in energy, then the price hike in food and water will follow. So that kind of interconnection. So I think now the three different sectors, food and water and energy, must come together to solve these interconnection problems and to overcome their vulnerability to the climate change situation.
Under the Trump administration, a lot of changes are expected in the U.S. energy policy. How will it impact the global energy market?
Many people are worried about the Trump government, but there are some positive, I think, outcome which I see in his policy regarding energies. In that, in this grand transition, many are worried about lack of infrastructure investment because of this prospect that renewable energies will replace the fossil fuels. But if there are some political turmoil, the price of oil will spike immediately. So we need some cushion to mitigate this kind of global crisis. And Mr. Trump announced that he will announce $1 trillion in infrastructure for traditional energy sector. This is very happy news in that they can provide a cushion for this global turmoil which can come. And so they can provide some soft landing for this grand transition.
In this time of grand transition, what is the biggest challenge Korea is facing?
I would say what is biggest opportunities, because now we have never been